and ask ourselves whether the way Africa is portrayed by the Western media is it justified? If it's not justified, why do we have that happening? And how can we change that narrative? Of course, Jessica and her team are doing this, but what else can be done to change the narrative? And what can we as African media practitioners do to change those narratives? And so that's what basically we will be looking at. And I'm sure you've all had your own experiences. You've read something about Africa from the Western media and you've gone, wow, you want to hear those stories, how you felt, what's yeah, so how do you feel about those stories when you read them? What are you going to do if you have had the opportunity to write about Africa yourself? What are some of the angles you look at? And I'm sure we have all written about Africa several times. And when you look back at what you have done, right, and you look at the allegations or charge against the Western media, ask yourself whether you really done anything different from what you do.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. So if we can just keep our movements to the barest minimum. So for those of you who have already grabbed your tea, coffee, don't worry. If you finish with them, you don't need to take them back to where you pick them up. Don't worry, they'll pick them up, so we can avoid the interruptions. I was saying that you look back at those stories and ask yourself whether there is any significant difference from the way the Western media reports about Africa and when we are reporting ourselves. If you go out now and there is an accident, right? Doesn't matter how terrible that accident is.
You report.
Right? You will report, right? Why? Because it is
Newsworthy.
it's newsworthy. It's a disaster, right?
Not all of that.
Right?
Not all of that.
This one I reported before. I'm telling you.
But if within that same period you're competing for space, and then within that same period there's a resignation or maybe a minister is fired because of some corrupt tendency, which one are you going to highlight? The corruption, right?
Yes.
Because of what? Because of the people involved.
Yes.
Yeah. And who decides who is prominent and what is prominent in these circumstances?
Mm-hmm.
Did you have a choice?
No.
Do you realize that we have been templated because of the training we have?
Sure.
You do. But even when you have that choice and you write, you pick that angle, you don't make that decision. There is a gatekeeper there who will decide that, listen, they will skip it. I don't know whether they do it there. There used to be a news editor in Grafton, and she used to make us cry when we went there to do. She would just skip the story. Don't waste my time. She just threw it away. Because they don't like that angle. And I remember when I was covering the 1996 elections, and I was attached to the political desk. And ABA Husseini, before he will send you to go and cover a story, you know the angle he wants you to pick. I remember very well I went to cover a story, a political campaign at Soweto, and Nana Kudegadman Rollins was the one who was addressing it. and something happened. She said something that was weird and very provocative, and so I picked that up. Because for me, she shouldn't be saying that. That was very divisive. That was just the usual, ethnicity sort of. So I picked that angle. I thought he says, no way, I should bring my part. He wants to see. Because of course, he's not a member of parliament for NDC, right? So you can see where the ideology is. So he thought, no, this is going to give her a bad publicity. That's not the angle he wants. He wants me to pick another angle. Do you get the point? So these are the things that we will be looking at. So I want us to I don't know whether we could, but the grouping thing would also distract us a bit and take us back. So we can just do what we did yesterday. So I want us to look at, so I want us to, let's look at sharing our experiences, right? Just briefly, and we can do that, we can volunteer, of how Africa is portrayed by the Western media. Just in one or two words, how would you say the Western media portrays Africa? You can just say it, just.
Western media portrays Africa as a place of witches and wizards.
Witches
and wizards.
And wizards. Yeah? Witches and wizards. And is that a positive thing or a negative thing?
Negative.
They call themselves witches and wizards in quotes. When you talk to them, you go to meeting and somebody is so good, they say, oh, that guy is a witch. But they use it in a more positive way. But when they talk about it in Africa, they are looking at it in a very negative way. And so like Jessica was saying, it's about the way they frame it. The priming of it is just something we need to look at. Yeah, so that's one of the narratives you see. Africa, the witches and wizards, and they have witches and wizards come in the 21st century. They are still spending almost all their time trying to close down witches and wizards camp. And frankly, I'm disappointed in that. With that, we do have that. I don't know whether any of you are aware. I'm not saying I'm as old as Methuselah, but I mean, when we were growing up, I was born in Malam, and you know this Nyamiche. If you know where Nyamiche is, that was a witch's camp. Yeah, that was it. Yeah. So we used to walk from Malam, and I think Wednesdays, and I can't remember what days it is. Wednesdays, Fridays, she bring them out, and you come and see them, and they tell their story, what they've done, who they have killed, and all those things, and they name their sick, and we'll be clapping for them, and they'll be singing, and they will shave them, yeah. And if you don't tell the story, she will come and beat you. She will beat them like hell. And we will go there, we enjoy. We go there.
Became popular.
Yeah, that was like that.
Which is all.
Yeah, she'll be arrested. So you be with your family in the house, somebody's, they think they are not progressing, the next thing they beat you, they send you to her. She will take you through torture, and you are forced to confess. And that confession is really manipulated. This was happening at the heart of Accra. Yeah. And so when I hear that we are still having these things, I get so disappointed. Because those days we were kids. We didn't know what, but you sometimes you feel the pain. And these are women, elderly women, serving till 60, 80 years. They will shave them. They will come and sit there. We'll give them money. They will sing for us. Yeah, they will sing for us, and they will tell you what they do, how they fly at night, and then who gave it to them, how they got it.
Sometimes it's
They're comfort.
And here we are and we have like how was not able to get rid of. And that is not being done in the other way.
It's all part of what we are going to look at. It's about the remoteness of issues. I mean, obviously, when Accra became cosmopolitan, it got to that stage where you really would not. That place is a prime place, and it's how which kind of nonsense, who is going to be in that space? They kick you out. You understand? And that's where people start moving away and moving away. But those days, if anybody knows where I'm talking about, Malam, right? Malam is not far, but even that time, when we were in secondary school, when you say you come from Malam, they think you are from some village somewhere. That tells you how those sort of territories were. So they were really seen as some village guys. So that place was not developed at that time. It was, to walk to that place, of course, when we go and come back, we get some beatings, but we will still go back. Yeah, we will still go back and enjoy. But because it exposed you to a lot of things at a very early stage in life. But it's terrible. People have gone through a lot. So these are some of the things, the narratives about the witches and all those things, right? And I'm saying that it all depends on how you flip it. Some look at it positively and negatively. Frank, what comes to mind when you hear, when you see how do you observe the portrayal of Africa in the Western media? In one way, or two. Weakness. And you can see they are not weak. I don't know whether it was Zubaida who was saying it about when she went to the US. When my mom visited me in the UK, was working with her. I used to work at the Shepherd Law Center. And they put me on a desk, and I was only dealing with donkeys. Yes. Homeless people. So basically, they are, if you don't work, they put you on benefits. They pay your house rent for you, and they give you some upkeep money. But you're supposed to be doing certain things. And you're supposed to, if you are on drugs, you're supposed to go through some rehabilitation. If you don't go, they withdraw that payment. So they will run to me and have to appeal and go and fight for it. So I became very popular with those idiots. So when I'm walking in town, they will be calling me all over. So when I'm walking in town with my Ghanaian friends, they came to me. They said, they love me. They will call me. So when my mom came and we were walking in town, and one of the guys approached me, hey, Zach. Can I borrow? They won't tell you to give them. They said, can I borrow some £5 or £2? I said, crazy, we're borrowing what? So I just gave him something. Then my mom was like, what is that? I don't know, he wants something. He said, me giving Obroni money? So I took her to the underground, and she saw people lying there, homeless people. Because some of them, when they don't stay on the program, they kick them out. Because the house doesn't belong to government, they take it sometimes from private people and government pays. But you have to stay on the program. And if you are on unemployment benefit, if you're not working, they give you money. Unemployment benefits. But it means that you have to agree to go on a program to build your capacity. If the reason why you're not getting employment is because you don't have the skills, they'll put you on a program to get the skills. And within this particular period of time, you should be able to get some job. Sometimes you'll be forced to do a voluntary job. I was running a project when they bring me all these people on a project. So if you don't go, they will stop giving you the money. And if they stop, then it means you can't pay your landlord. So you become homeless. So you see them playing, the lying down there. My mom was shocked. Yeah, she was really, really shocked. And she said, if she goes back home and she tells people this story, they will think she's lying. Yeah. Because she hasn't had the benefit of formal education, and it was a shocker for her. Right? So the point I'm making is that they create the impression as if we are weak. But weakness is part of human nature. But they create the impression that we are weak, they are strong. And we go to them all the time to bail us out. Oh, there are a lot of them. My laptop, my iPad got stolen in San Francisco. In the hotel, less than, see me, I'm a Zongo boy. I don't hear certain things. I mean, there are every few places that I can go. In San Francisco, we were walking on the street, and I feared for my life. I was like, what? They are on your face asking you for money, and like you realize if you don't give them, they will harm you. And they want you to eat, go and buy food. Because San Francisco is a very expensive place to live. And these are people who probably have been working very top profile work. They've got some problem, they kick them out of job. Maximum within 3 months he's being kicked out of his house because he can't maintain. It is really terrible, but you know, they have a way of telling their stories. And we are not good at that. And that's what we need to be conscious of. Right?
I'm coming in here. So like you just said, how we present our what we are going to do. It will shock you to know that the other that was on the United States of America government. The other that was something elected. And before you go, you the ambassador, don't do orientation and all that. And the orientation, you were told that you should never walk in sector, especially in the evening. Never walk alone. Be in groups. And they told us that because they told us that there was no way of stealing, you could be stabbed, shot, and all that. But you see, these were things that I was told only at the end. And they have, because they are Ghanaian, what they're going on their tickets, it means that they know and take that good. And so they told me that. But then I asked myself, have you heard the ambassador ever say this anywhere that in America you can start when you are just walking on the street? They don't talk about it. And so I don't know how come they've been able to manage it.
But who talks? Who feeds them with that story? Is it not us? So if NBC wants to hex the MPP or the other way around, they will talk about that. Yet when it comes to them, when it's about the national interest, they know how to do the thing.
Do you all remember when Obama was coming to Ghana? And then Atamis, I think he was the president at the time, had to clear people from the streets. Do you remember the narrative that went around it? Oh, why are you clearing people from the street? In America, they have the homeless. That was the first time I heard about the homeless in America. And so why don't we allow them on the street? So the cameras capture them. The world should know we have the homeless as well here on the street. Why are we hiding it? So it's our problem. It's our problem. We don't really care. We think it is news.
And you see, most of the things, right? We have to find us. We do so much, and we do a lot of things that the international community admires for. But with that story that is not told, because it's not obvious. They are not interested in these things. They're not interested. Yeah. Anybody? Let's take one more. Yeah. We are hungry people, poverty, ready to die, Koshoko,
and then
oh, he's a clown.
Boris Johnson.
You know that if Boris was in Ghana and was young, we are saying that.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
But that's a guy that he spends over how many thousands.
No, but
he counts.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing about them is that honestly, one thing I like about their system is about experience. They don't know too much. We are too academic here. Yeah. You go somewhere and you meet somebody who just dropped out of school when they were maybe 16, 17, and they've been working at a particular place and they've gained experience. People with masters are working at that place. And you learn a lot. One of the trainings I do a lot of training for Coca-Cola and other in customer service. I never went to any because I learned it on the job. Because whilst I was studying, I was working in the call center. And that's one of the worst places you can work in your life. Call center. Yeah. You will never go to work and come back home without somebody having upset. People cry all the time. You know when somebody is telling you nonsense on the phone and you can't tell them anything bad? you have to be customer service, and then people are telling you go back to your country. And sometimes our own people do it to us. You know, because we were working, it's the largest call center in Europe. And so people would buy insurance. Those early stages when the IMEI, that's how come the IMEI number became a feature of our phones. Because people who buy phones, right, send it back to Ghana or Nigeria or wherever, and then they report that the phone has been stolen or lost because they have insurance, and then they'll give them back. So that's why now they brought that in, and that they can use the IMEI number to track or track the. And sometimes you'll be on the phone, somebody will call you, say, I lost my phone has been stolen. And you know, we have an asset at Ghanaian. And straight away you pick up, realize this is the printer. So you want to speak local language, the person is like, let's speak English, okay. And then somewhere along the line, you realize that because you take insurance for loss or theft, and there are two different things. If you lose your phone, it's different from somebody stealing it. And most of the time, they take the insurance for the stealing, because if you take both, it's expensive. So when they come through, I try to get them to understand, Master, the narrative you are giving me, if you go down that route, you won't get your claim. Then they won't listen and say, okay. So when they come over, I say, well, from what you are saying, you lost the phone. Yeah. I said, but you're not covered for long. No, yeah. I said, can you go to this section 1, clause this, can you read it? When they read it, say, oh, we have said about him. Then they change
the language.
But the reason why I'm raising this is about what we talked about, how we go about doing things in Africa. We put too much emphasis on things that they don't. Even those of you who like football, and you watch the analysts who come to do analysis in the Premiership, see that they are past footballers. Wayne Rooney, Michael Owen, the Liverpool, the Newcastle legend,
Alan
Shearer. Their English is terrible. Because they really are not. Sometimes when they meet some of us Ghanaians who go there, they say we speak too posh English, and that's what we do. They don't care about those drama and those things. The thing is, look at how many past footballers have we got here who can come and contribute meaningfully to the discourse. But we don't bring them. They bring people like me whose understanding of football is theoretical. Purely theory. Right? Yeah. So they bring Calcifor, they bring all these people, they will come and talk playing. They've never kicked football before. Meanwhile, those guys who have played up to the highest level, because they can't come and speak the English, the only savings grade now is that now we have the local station, so they are able to, this is the problem. And that is part of the narrative that we need to really start looking at changing. If we don't, it's going to be a vicious cycle. Yeah. All right. So I think we can move on to the next slide. We've gone deeper into a lot of the slides that will be coming up. Okay. So how do you feel? No, go back.
Oh, you need to for that.
Yeah. So we've identified that. Let's go to the next one. Yeah. So we're going to do this in group, but we've done that individually, so that's fine. Now, I wanted us to look at how do you feel and why, in terms of the portrayal. How do we feel? What we feel? Why do we feel that way?
For me, my feeling is kind of mixed. Why? Because I feel most of them, we give them the platform to run us down, portray us as the witches and wizards in the derogatory sense and all that. As you rightly said, our own people will lead them to where the negative stories are. To cover things that they know themselves are not permitted by law at their place. Our own people will encourage them, even if they want to tell you that this thing is not as oh, here you can do it. You have real experiences. So for me, the feeling is mixed. If we stop, we stand our ground and know that we have a country and an image to protect and a narrative to change, we should be careful how we do our things.
But in my typical Ghanaian, African way of doing things, we believe in superstition and all those things. You know, one of my friends is more, she leads a team that goes witch hunting. Ghost hunting. So she's written a book on ghost hunting. Ghosts, yeah, they go hunting for ghosts. So they identify houses and places that are haunted by ghosts, and they will go hunting, and they claim they see them. So I found the book very fascinating. So I decided I'll talk to Salim and ask him whether he could get them all to come on my show. I used to run a program on Bengal Community Radio. I was presenting a show called African Forum. And so I decided I would invite her there to come and talk on my show. At that stage, I haven't really understood their system. I nearly cost that radio station their license. Because that was not a topic that is allowed by the UK regulatory agency. I was fast. You can't come and talk about that nonsense on radio. They nearly lost their. But here, we bring all these idiots and they come and, you know. And when you do that, what signal are you sending to these people? You understand? So yeah, so this I get your point. Let's get other perspectives. People who have some people haven't spoken yet since yesterday. You know that, right? Hey, who can you identify one of them?
She has not spoken.
Yeah.
Have you spoken yesterday?
What did you say?
Don't worry, I will locate those people.
That's what I did with my students. When my student says I have spoken, I say, okay, repeat what you said. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I share your view. I think we also have a part to say the way the West portrays that. Because sometimes, I always start with the example, go to demonstration. You see people urinating anywhere. That's the one I see in my heart. And nobody will come and tell you not to do this. You have to know it yourself. I mean, you can't do this. You can't be sitting around and no white man will come and be cleaning and tell you, no, don't sit here, don't do that.
And when they see that, for them it is unusual, right?
Yeah.
And unusualness is the news value, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that will feed into their news.
So I think we have a part to play. You can't be urinating anywhere like that. Like, no, decently.
Okay. Anybody else?
Okay, so I feel bad though because I think they think we are dependent on them because we go for aids from them. So when we portray our things, they base on that for, let's say for sympathy. Then they help us do that. So that's how I also see, because whatever you put on their table, they will base on that to help you.
Yeah. They have their own terms. And because we are greedy and selfish, we go for some of these things. You see the way the narrative is changing about the gay and lesbian thing? Don't be surprised. We are going to legislate and give them rights. It's just a matter of time. We can't see. We are greedy or that. Let me tell you something. I was part of a colleague came from the US and established an organization called African Center for International Law and Accountability. And I was a board member. And an organization that was less than 1 year was given a funding, right? 80,000 euro funding to do a research on the way people perceive gays and lesbians and how they would treat them. And when we did that research, the finding was shocking. Medical doctors were saying well, if I'm a doctor and a gay or lesbian comes, if I have my way, I won't treat them. So based on that, and all this, but what we can do is to frame the discourse and say, yes, they may be gay, they may be lesbian, but they have certain fundamental human rights. So just because they are gays and lesbians, you don't have the right to deny them medical facilities. You don't have the right to beat them up. You don't. So that's what we did. But the point I'm making is that this is an organization that was less than 1 year old. They gave us 80,000 euros. Calculate 80,000 euros, calculate. No, calculate 80,000 euros by 7. It doesn't come to me, it goes to the organization. I need my training. Right? But the point I'm making is that if they can give this amount of money to an organization that is 1 year, what would they do to
I attended one of
politicians?
those trainings just recently.
How much money do you give to a politician?
They started with health
So
reform,
it's just a matter of
but
time.
everything we're
The only
doing was
saving
about
grace is that
gay,
the three
transgender,
major
throughout the
religions,
period.
the three major religions, if you like, in Ghana are all united. So it puts the politician in a very difficult situation because anything that would hurt their political ambitions, they don't want to. Otherwise, like they will just pass.
Oh, long time.
And they are worried too because even if they go to courts, who are those in the courts? Are they Muslims, Christians?
Exactly.
So do you think you go to the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court judge will say gays and lesbians they have rights, and then Sunday will go to church? His pastor will see and say yes, they want us to come and pray so that they exorcise that demons that is worrying him. That's the only reason why we are really not getting these things done, because we are so emotionally attached because of our religion and our tradition. But I mean, in terms of liberal way of looking at it, we are misbehaving. No, honestly, we are misbehaving. I mean, you can't pick and choose how you want to practice democracy.
Sure.
You know, and we said we now belong to an international community. So it's a matter of time. So long as they are not doing it in a way that causes a bigger problem, that's for another. But I have not been involved in this latest one because it's becoming a bit too vicious. Yeah, it's becoming too vicious. I don't like getting involved in those silly things. You know, I say I'm a silly character. Yeah. So you feel bad about it because they are portraying your country or your continent in a way that is so disrespectful. But what impact does it have on the individuals or the people of the country?
You lose opportunities.
Yeah?
You lose out on opportunities.
Yeah.
I have a friend who got admission to I've forgotten the university in Canada. When she went for the register, they told her that they think she won't come back after. So she was denied.
But they even denied an MP. He said he hasn't got strong ties. Strong ties.
And he's an MP.
Yeah, strong ties.
Yeah.
So when you go, you will come back. Yeah. Because of that. Because the thing,
Nigerian friends.
every opportunity you get, you want to run away from that dungeon.
Yeah.
And go to the heaven on earth.
I have Nigerian friends.
I think when it comes to what she just said, and I think it's also about the narrative. Perhaps the person who applied sounded desperate in the application. And once you sound desperate in the application, you won't come back. My case, for instance, even though it was even the US state that was sponsored, they still made us go through the visa application. We still went for interview. And when they asked me, will you come back? I told them, why should I live there? And it was tricky. Why should I live there? I have a job done. I was with TV3. I said, I'm not a young correspondent. Even though these weeks I am going, my station doesn't want me to go. I am stronger than them and they allow me to go. So why would I live there? I have a family to also take care of, so I'll come back. And
but the point she's making is that
the narrative.
But the point is,
expression.
they have created that impression that they are heaven on earth. And therefore, in most instances, when you go there, you wouldn't want to. And we have instances where people are there and they are creating the impression that that is the thing. So that's the point. And that makes people lose out on so many opportunities, right? Okay.
I have Nigerian friends who have been denied visa several times because they think they are scammers. Just that you are from
No, the
Nigeria.
way Nigerians are treated, even in Africa, is terrible.
You just reminded me of something. Ask Nigerians how difficult it is for them to go to South Africa.
Yeah.
It's terrible to get a visa to go to South Africa. And yet we are in Africa.
That's what I was talking about. We were supposed to, we do this, there's financial reporting educators. So media scholars from different universities in Africa. So we're going around, we went to Kenya, we went to South Africa, we're going to go to Namibia, and it's visa free, you get visa on arrival. The way they treated the Nigerians, these are academics, professors and PhD, it was so embarrassing, and I was so angry. Namibia. Come on. I was so angry. They were great. Ghana, when we got there, they just told them, what are you coming to do? They made the two. And these are elderly people. They made them stay somewhere, asking them silly questions and all those things. What is he coming to do in Namibia? But this is the thing. And it's all because of what we're talking about. Because of the narrative about the cybercrime, the Yahoo, as if everybody who comes there, they are in some hell. And all that, the reason why they are there is because they haven't got a way of coming out. But anytime they get an opportunity, they all want to leave and go and stay away. And that because they are dying of hunger.
She began enjoying the place. And all of a sudden, the time was up for her. And she not here. Don't worry. When you go next time,
You can come.
Anyway.
I just wanted to add something. You just reminded me of something from back home. In Zimbabwe, it's so difficult for a Kenyan, a Ugandan, and some Nigerians, even for some people from DRC to come through Zimbabwe. Why is that so? Because there is that belief that they will come through Zimbabwe and then use a bus to break into South Africa. So it's so difficult. I tell you, even if you check on YouTube, there are some YouTubers who are actually harassed for wanting to come to Zimbabwe, like when they go to the airport. The questions are so many. And if you check all these countries that I mentioned, they are supposed to get visas upon arrival. Others do not need a visa at all, especially Ghana. You don't need a visa at all. But when you get to the airport, they'll start asking you 100 questions. Why are you coming to Zimbabwe? How long are you staying? Do you have enough money? Blah, 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 blah. You know? So what you are saying is really valid in terms of how we are even our own enemies, in terms of narratives and in terms of just being there for each other as Africans.
Like, just look at this visa process, right? Almost when you hear the narrative in the media, when we are reporting about it, we are talking about the issues about the denial. The number of people they've denied visa, they are being unfair to us. But have we really flipped the point and pushed them to the wall and asked them how much money they are making out of that and the exploitation? How many times do we talk about that and make them feel guilty about those things? Is that partly not the reason why you deny people? Because when you are in Europe, right, in America, and you are applying for visa to go to any European country, they don't ask you all those silly documents. It's an effortless process. Very effortless.
She went for the visa. Within 2 weeks, I mean, less than a week, they called her to come for 3 years. Time. First time out.
It's effortless. Sometimes you do it. They do it through the post. They do it through the post. You send it and then, yeah.
Why are we doing this with our visas?
Yeah. Let me give you another example. The year, what was the year President Akufo-Addo was beaten by 40,000 votes? That was 208, right? That was 208, I think. Yeah, one bill, right? 40,000 votes. And so on my show, I decided to talk about how close that elections was, and the fact that we went for 3 different election rounds, and eventually we were able to make it, and we didn't tear each other apart. Because that week I had the opportunity to get a report about the electoral fraud going on in the UK. And it's serious, the postal, because they do it through the post. Then when there are elections, you don't see party agents. Which agents? Who has time? You come and sit down there and say you are monitoring what?
Number one.
No. It's an official. The issue of official. You go away, evening time, you go to the police center and listen. No, nobody even bothers. Right? But they were doing this postal votes, and they were intercepting people's postal letters and all that. So we decided we were going to focus on that on our show. And they were so uncomfortable. Very, very, very uncomfortable. At that time, the Deputy Prime Minister of UK, Nick Clegg, was a Sheffield MP. And so he calls me and says, I think that is just missing the point. This is an isolated case. And I said, but in Africa's case, it's an isolated case. It's an isolated case. But they will not talk about that. You think that what didn't happen during Bush and the Agor issue? Did they concentrate on that? No, they didn't. When Old Bob was telling them that if they would be sending people to Africa to monitor elections, he wants to send people to go and monitor the elections. They said the old man was crazy. Mugabe. Yeah, they said he was crazy. But this is the narrative. So yes, we are right to feel angry because this is our continent, and if it is portrayed negatively, when you are portrayed in a very negative light, stereotyped in a negative light, it has negative consequences for you. So we have the right to what? Feel guilty about that. Yeah. But do Europeans share the same concerns about their portrayal? When we portray them in a negative light, they didn't share the same concerns.
Let's see the mic.
Yeah. So I was talking about the election petition and the 2 election petitions that we've had. There's a lot of regulations and what goes on during our elections and all that. Something of that sort. Ghanaians demanded that they wanted to know what was happening at the court. And then it was live for the whole nation to see. So let's say some of the happenings, some of them were in bad light and all that. If outsiders see, is it our fault?
No, it's not our fault. But the point we are making is that they won't pick up the beauty of us challenging results in court and all those things. They will highlight on some of the things that are coming out that are negative. That is just part of the processes of elections, where every other country that goes through elections have those share of issues. But they won't talk about that. We'll talk about other issues. So it's about, and that is what they will do. But when you are telling the story, are you also going to play along and not highlight the positives? Because if you don't tell your story, then who else can tell your story for you? Right? And there is research that shows that, the Western countries, they really don't care about how Africa portrays them. Why? Why do you think they don't care about how Africa portrays them? Because really, the majority of them would never ever visit Africa. What happens in Africa may not have any direct impact on them or even indirectly. But for us, it does. The way they perceive us and the way they portray us has serious consequences of that, because we are developing countries. We want people to come and invest in our country. You are creating the impression that Nigeria is full of 419 people and that anybody who you do business with, it doesn't matter whether he's the minister of state, is a potential criminal. And there were reports which say that even ministers, they use Aso Rock. Is it Aso Rock, right? They use Aso Rock to dupe Western people. So a minister of state would if somebody from the presidency would make his office available just for them to succeed in duping somebody. If you create that impression, then the attraction you want to gain by inviting investors in your country, it will go away. So that is a challenge. That is why even if they don't care about how we portray them, we care about how they portray us, and we have to start changing the narrative. But I'll come back to it later. I want to make some progress before. So that's just what we are talking about. Europeans are not immigrating to Africa in large numbers, so they simply don't need to care about how Africans view them. But we are going there in our numbers, and up to today, I've been back to Ghana, 2012. Sarah, it's your man's book, 2012 now. How many years ago? 9 years. Yeah, 9 years. And people keep still asking me silly questions. Why did you come back? My own country. Just because I'm complaining about frustration that I'm going through, they said, then why did you come back? People go to UK and Sheffield, and then they come back, they go there. Some of our students, they go there, are doing their masters, and they go, he said, you are like an icon in Sheffield. So why did you leave? So stay there and die. And preach at the old people's home. You know what happens at the old people's? You know the concept of the Western person. You know, when we say old people, and our elderly people, we see them as an epitome of wisdom, right? Yeah. For them, their concept of old is like when you have old clothes, what do you do with them? You discard them. That's what they do to their old people. And it's so bad. See, I have so much experiences. When I went as my brother, I went as a postal man, right? When I was studying as a post office guy, so I was distributing letters for their royal mail. And they put me on a walk. And that walk has about 4 or 5 different old people's homes. And you go there and you deliver the letter, and an old woman will come out with chocolate. She just wants to talk to you. Yeah. Because the children have dumped her there. And their children are medical doctors, lawyers, and engineers, and consultants. They only come there once in a while. On their birthday, they bring them flowers. Nonsense. So they want to talk to you. So I would end up spending time talking to them. And you know, you have the time to finish those deliveries. And almost all the time, missing the point. This is an isolated case. And I said, but in Africa's case, it's an isolated case. It's an isolated case. But they don't talk about that. You think that what didn't happen during Bush and the Agor issue? But did they concentrate on that? No, they didn't. When old Bob was telling them that if they will be sending people to Africa to monitor elections, he wants to send people to go and monitor the elections. They said the old man was crazy. Mugabe. Yeah, they said he was crazy. But this is the narrative. So yes, we are right to feel angry because this is our continent, and if it is portrayed negatively, when you are portrayed in a very negative light, stereotyped in a negative light, it has negative consequences for you. So we have the right to feel guilty about that. Yeah. But do Europeans share the same concerns about their portrayal? When we portray them in a negative light, do they share the same concern?
Yeah, so I was talking about the election petition, the 2 election petitions that we've had. You know, it did a lot of revelations and what goes on during our elections about that. Something of that sort. Ghanaians demanded that they wanted to know what was happening at the court, and then it was live for the whole nation to see. So let's say some of the happenings, some of them were in bad light and all that. If outsiders see, is it our fault?
No, it's not our fault. But the point we are making is that they won't pick up the beauty of us challenging results in court and all those things. They will highlight on some of the things that are coming out that are negative. That is just part of the processes of elections, where every other country that goes through elections have those share of issues. But they won't talk about that. We'll talk about other issues. So it's about, and that is what they will do. But when you are telling the story, are you also going to play along and not highlight the positives? Because if you don't tell your story, then who else can tell your story for you? Right? And there is research that shows that, you know, the Western countries, they really don't care about how Africa portrays them. Why? Why do you think they don't care about how Africa portrays them? Because really, a majority of them would never ever visit Africa. They would, what happens in Africa may not have any direct impact on them or even indirectly. But for us, it does. The way they perceive us and the way they portray us has serious consequences of that, because we are developing countries. We want people to come and invest in our country. If you are creating the impression that Nigeria is full of 419 people and that anybody who you do business with, it doesn't matter whether he's a minister of state, he's a potential criminal. And there were reports which says that even ministers, they use Aso Rock. Is it Aso Rock, right? They use Aso Rock to dupe Western people. So a minister of state would make, if somebody from the presidency would make his office available just for them to succeed in duping somebody. If you create that impression, then the attraction you want to gain by inviting investors in your country, it will go away. So that is a challenge. That is why even if they don't care about how we portray them, we care about how they portray us, and we have to start changing the narrative. I'll come back to you in a bit. Yeah. I want to make some progress before. So that's just what we are talking about. Europeans are not immigrating to Africa in large numbers, so they simply don't need to care about how Africans view them. But we are going there in our numbers, and up to today, I've been back to Ghana, 2012. Sarah, it's your mass group, 2012 to now. How many years ago? 9 years. Yeah, 9 years. And people keep still asking me silly questions. Why did you come back? My own country. Just because I'm complaining about frustrations that I'm going through, they say, then why did you come back? People go to UK, Sheffield, and then they come back, they go there. Some of our students, they go there and bring their masters, and they go, he said, you are like an icon in Sheffield. So why did you leave? So stay there and die, and be good at the old people's home. You know what happens at the old people? You know the concept of the Western person. You know, when we say old people, and our elderly people, we see them as an epitome of wisdom, right? For them, their concept of old is like when you have old clothes, what do you do with them? You discard them. That's what they do to their old people. And it's so bad. See, I have so much experiences. Well, I work as Mabel. I worked as a postal man, right? When I was studying as a post office guy, so I was distributing letters for their Royal Mail. And they put me on a walk. And that walk has about 4 or 5 different old people's homes. And you go there and you deliver the letter, and an old woman will come out with chocolates. She just wants to talk to you. Because the children have dumped her there. And their children are medical doctors, lawyers, and engineers, and consultants. They only come there once in a while. On their birthday, they bring them flowers. Nonsense. So they want to talk to you. So I would end up spending time talking to them, and you have the time to finish those deliveries. And almost all the time I go over, they kick me out of that walk. Yeah, they kick me out of that walk. They realized that I was taking a meeting. I couldn't tell them why, because it's so painful. They want to talk to you. You can't just ignore them. So you come, you deliver the letter, then the next thing she comes up, hey, hi, this is for you. They want to talk to you. My dog is this one about their life and all those sort of things. It is sad. You understand? So we are always trying to go there, and we don't want to. Your family will beg you and go to pastors and malams to pray that you don't come back home. Stay there. So that is why they don't care about how we portray them, but we have to care about how we are portrayed. Yes, madam. Yeah.
I want to. You said because we go there and they don't come here. As much as we do, probably that's the reason why they don't care about how we portray them in our media. I beg to differ. I think it's because we don't have a powerful voice. Because a country like Israel cares. They are not immigrating to America or Americans, but they care about whatever any country, even if it's it's a media organization in Iceland, doing publications and portraying Israel in a very negative way. They really care. They are not going to Iceland, but they really are interested in anything about their country. I think Africa will not really develop a media organization that has that powerful voice to trumpet issues like that. They have BBC, they have CNN. When things happen in Zimbabwe, for instance, we go to BBC for information. It's so bad. Something happened in Burkina Faso last time, and all our stories we were reading were BBC and CNN, Reuters. I think we have to get a media, an African BBC, like we were talking about it, an African Al Jazeera, an African something like that, like like what Kwame Nkrumah wanted to do with Ghana News Agency. To have that.
Yeah, you're right. So the point about they not caring because we are immigrating there and they are not coming, it's part of the reasons. It's not their only reason. It's part of the reason, and you will see that yes, the issue about the voice matters. But for instance, it's good you mentioned Israel. Israel, in terms of lobbying, international lobbying, there is no other group that have that power than Israel because of the Jewish lobby. They are so powerful. If you joke with them, you will go away. Even an American president who jokes with Israel is going to face the consequences. Look at how Israeli prime ministers are able to look at American presidents in the face and tell them they are wrong. Because they are a powerful lobby. Majority, almost about all the industrial, and the economic powers in the US, in the UK, and Europe are owned by Jews. You don't touch them. Why do you think the Europeans are now fighting very hard to make it illegal for you to even deny that Holocaust took place? But they are saying that Africans, we cannot hold our views and say we don't want it. But even if you say that I don't believe Holocaust took place, it's a criminal offense in Europe and Australia and other countries. Because you are denying that those things didn't happen to Israelis. So it's all about the narrative. But when people have something to pick from you, when they see some of them, these are some of the pictures you see, young soldier, right? You won't find this in any European or American narrative. Nobody, because no child would be admitted into American or UK or any European army. Right? Although they send children very early, people, when you are 16 or 17, I think you can join their army. And then they send their army to go and die.
What about those Eastern Europeans? The Europeans that are considered not really...
Well, the only reason why they are not considering them as human beings like them and not lumping them together as Africans is because of the European Union. And they wanted to build America. And as you said, these are the things Nkrumah and others envisaged. We started the African Union concept before they even thought about it. But we are defensive. We like power. And because of power, we don't really care. So long as I'm not going to be powerful, I'll destroy it. Otherwise, the European Union, what do they think about the European Union? That concept came from us. Yeah.
For me, I think the problem, all that we are talking about, maybe if you want to apportion, I'll give 80% of the problem to us and give 20% to them, maybe 10% to them. Why? Because we, up to this time,
I was running was trying to orient the UK Home Office to understand, because Pakistanis and Yemenis and Sudanese, when they travel outside, they travel to their countries, they are British citizens. First generation, second generation British citizens. When they are coming back, they have British passports. Then you have a young 24-year-old immigration officer interviewing maybe a 70-year-old Pakistani woman, old woman. And he's talking to her and she's not making eyeball to eyeball with him. And then straight away he's thinking terrorism. Maybe she's gone there and she's got some bomb in her jilbab or something. So they put them aside and waste their time for 4 or 5 hours. So we had to come in and do some series of training for them to tell them that in Africa, for instance, all of you here, we are. If you are talking to an elderly woman, right, your grandmother or your auntie, and then you are talking to her, you are looking at her and say, "Oh boy, you only look at someone don't say what." Oh boy, why you only say what? Oh boy, yeah, that's what they will tell you. But to them they say you are lying. That's why you're not making eyeball to eyeball with them. Right? I have a friend. He's a very popular guy, Dr. Mensa. He's in the University of Ghana Business School. And we went to visit a Nigerian lady from the northern part of Nigeria, Kano. And she practices strict Islam. So she doesn't shake hands with men. But I know. So when I go, I we grab a person in shower. So, but Kobe didn't know. So we went there. Kobe was stretching his hand, and Kobe was like, "What is this?" So when we were going, and Kobe is a very guy. So when we were going, I explained to him, he said, "Oh, okay, I understand." Right? And nothing to do with Kobe. But that is how her orientation is. But these narratives don't take these things into account. And that is what we, who understand the context and all those things, we need to be talking about. But there is ethics to everything, right? So, okay, we've talked about it. Africa is growing in, and these people lack agency and are dependent on outsiders. You know, earlier on, the lady said it. They have a begging bowl mentality rather than being self-motivated. As if all our existence, it is their aid and grants that makes us survive. But who will you blame when you have people going to them? You have your African leaders, right? Look at the average age of the African leader, right? And look at the average age of the European leaders. Some of them are young enough to be their grandchildren. So you have 70, 80-year-old people going to their grandchildren and children and begging them for money. And they give you the money, and you come and you are exhibiting some ostentatious lifestyle that they would never ever dream about it. They would never ever dream about it. So this is some of the things. So people are saying that in some of the way we are portrayed here, so people are saying that this is the way they portray us, and sometimes it is justified. But what you said earlier on about the people they use for their interview, validation of African authorities, the experts, right? When the sayer is a Western participant, and by Western participant, when the person has a Western orientation or exposure, right? When they are using those people as authorities, they give them more room and they give them more platform, right? Because indirectly, the person they know shares all their ideology. So that statement is invariably endorsed. So the statement that he's making, all the questions they will be asking, they're like leading questions. They are asking him questions to endorse the sort of things they want to bring out because that person is a Western world participant. But when the sayer is an African participant, the statement is invariably invalidated. And they will not tell you are lying, but when they are reporting, they say, well, he said, according to him. They are trying to tell you that we haven't validated that story. But if it is a Western participant, they make some emphatic statement. This is an expert, trust him. But if it's an African, say, well, I don't put much weight on that. Do you get the point? This is the way it is. This trivializes and discredits the statements of African sayers and suggests that Africans are deceitful and unreliable, lacking the moral integrity and credibility of their Western counterparts. So when they're using the experts, this is the way they frame those things as well. But we don't actually take those things out. And we, as African storytellers, we need to take the narrative. The only instance where African sayers do not have their statements discredited is in the case of African civilians and the church. Statements from African leaders, often partially, directly quoted, invariably contain exaggerated, boastful, illogical, we are going to build Now, toilet dry, you have one see amount of drinking water. People are sharing water with animals in the 21st century. Then you are there talking about building system. So they see these people. They say that's what basically what he's saying. We give them the opportunity to be disrespectful to us. So they say, oh, these people they are boastful. When we meet them in their conferences, they are just coming to drink coffee and go, take their career and go. You know. When positive statements are made or reported, they are generally undermined by showing that Western agents were responsible or that circumstances forced the leader to act in that way. So either they say, well, all these things they are doing, we help the Electoral Commission to actually do all these things. We force them, we force the royalists to concede and let go of the power and take us back to democracy. It was not him. He wouldn't have done that. Or, circumstances forced them to do those things. Yeah? Is Africa all about doom and negativity? Certainly not. There are so many good things that is happening in Africa, in whichever sphere of life you look at it.
Yes,
right?
Yeah, that's a quick one on this particular issue. I think just a week ago, the Liverpool manager, Jurgen Klopp, actually, he has some African players in his team.
Yeah.
And by January, when the AFCON is about starting, Salah and Mane will be leaving the team. And he was asked about their absence, how his team is going to fare. And he made a very derogatory statement.
Yeah, he said little time. But see, because of time,
went at him. Seriously.
I get you, but because of time. But you see, it's because of some of these exercises that we are doing that is making people aware of the nuances of the choice of words. Previously, we would have gotten away with it. But now he was forced to say that's not what he meant. And he was remorseful and he was apologetic. Although he refused to apologize. He said, oh, that's not the context within which he's putting it. He said that he was saying that, oh, there is some little tournament that is going to come. And the guy was saying, but would you say that about the European, and that's the point we're making, right? That this is how they go about things. But we have to challenge them, right? Because we have even some African players who will refuse to come because they prefer to what? Say, have you ever seen any story in any European newspaper or media where an European player or even a Western European player who plays for any of the top clubs, Barcelona, I'm a Manchester United fan, so I'll say Man U, all over around, right? Refusing to go when his country calls him to come and play, they are in a hurry to go. But African players, sometimes he does show, or if he comes, the witches and wizards, yeah, right? So there are a lot of examples, and my time is almost up, right? There are a lot of examples, right? And history, some untold historical facts about Africa. History is also consistent about Africa being the cradle of civilization. We know that, right? Right from the ancient Ethiopia to all those things. There is a lot of this, right? And some untold is contrary to the negative stereotyping that Africa has been backward, violent people who practice cannibalism. Now they've changed that. Those days they said we practice cannibalism, right? But now they're not saying that. And we believe in cruel religions. Yeah, in Islam and Christianity. Because frankly, when you go to Europe now, they are turning their churches into pubs and nightclubs and all those things. Yeah. You go to a big church like that, and you see only 3 or 4 elderly women who have been diagnosed of things, and basically they are on their way back to their makeup. They go to the church. So religion and conduct endemic tribal wars. They do their own fights. But see, I don't know what any of you have there. If you go to Europe and you want to go and watch any of their games, I was living in Sheffield, and then Sheffield United and then Sheffield Wednesday, they are rivals. When Sheffield United and Sheffield Wednesday are playing, it's like hell. Helicopters all over the place. When you are going to watch football in Europe, right, you support Kotoko, I support us. In Ghana, we all walk and sit at the same side and talk each other. It's not allowed there because you kill each other. Their football is like their religion. So the things they accuse us of using religion to do, they do worse in their football. You can't go, your own brother, one mother, one father, from the same house. You can't get the same ticket and go and sit at the same stand. If you are an Arsenal supporter, you go to the Arsenal stand, I go to the Man U stand. After the game we meet. That day, the day of the match, there are places that Arsenal supporters can't go, Man U supporters can't go. Police will be all over the place. This is intolerant at the highest level. But because they are not religious, so they haven't put their emotions in religion. We have put ours in that. They have put theirs there. But we don't talk about those things. They think, oh yeah, these Africans, they are so emotive about religion, they can kill for their religion. Those people can do worse. There are families who don't talk to each other because one is Sheffield United, one is Sheffield Wednesday. They call each other dogs and pigs. That's the terms of words they use against each other. But we don't hear about these things. Yeah. You know. So these are some of the things that we need to be looking at. Africa remains historically credited for the inventions that has gone a long way to help modern civilization. And there are a number of them. When you get the slides, you'll see them. In the field of science, in the field of inventions and discoveries, social structures, even national governments. They think that they want to know. Even universities and libraries, their origin and genesis, all is traced to Africa. But because we are not good at things, we start something, we don't document them, we don't polish them, it remains where it is, and they bring together the same African people who come to study, and then they bring them together, they come out with ideas, and then they send them out, and they create the impression of what is shared. It's not coming from them. Right? Social customs, circumcision. Right? You know that about 90-something% of Europeans are not circumcised. Right? And yet they have said that there is some health related, although World Health Organization is discounting that, but there is some health benefits there. Right? They are not. This issue of belly dancing that you think now is a big business and all those things, it's like that Africans have been doing it. Branding animals with hot ions, this tattoo and all those things, that is big business now there. It started here. And so there are a number of them. You get time, when you get time, just go through some of these things. Sorry, I'm rushing you through. Over the past 2 decades, within the constraints of our global economic system, several African countries are making major economic and social strides that should ultimately equip them to participate significantly in global affairs. And we should be looking out for some of these things. And how do we do that? We need to be looking at it from the context of advocacy journalism that I talked about. These are some of the top 10 innovations and inventions developed by Africa. And the Western world is copying that. This, you understand, right? Even this our mobile thing and all those things, these drones, these are all top class inventions and innovations that have been has emanated from Africa that people are not talking about. And we need to be talking about some of these things, yeah? Right? Square kilometer, this is one of in South Africa. And this was developed by Africa. It's said to be the world's largest telescope. And it allows scientists to look many times deeper into space. Nobody else has done that. It's in Africa. A Nigerian inventor has created a device that fuses live neurons from mice stem cells into a silicon chip for the first time. And the device can be used to detect explosives in cancer cells. Are you hearing about that? If it was them, they would be all over the place. Right? A team of Congolese, Congo, with all their challenges and all those things. Look at what they've done. Right? And machines are equipped with 4 cameras that allow them to record traffic flow. The information is then transmitted to a center where it can be analyzed and then used to direct traffic. You think that there's no traffic in Europe? You think that there's no flooding in Europe? Jesus Christ. We are certain places when it floods. They know that this is what to expect. The only thing is that their emergency system is high. So when they get the forecast that says it's going to rain, they are ready, evacuating people, sending them to places. But we will be there when people start dying before we come in. That's the difference. right? There are a lot of them. 3 developers from Kenya have created a panic button about that sends a distress signal with just a shake of a phone, right? These are all things that is being done here in Africa. Yes, you can go on. Yes, right? And then our own Dr. Bawumia's Rachel, right? Even in his own country, the opposition were discounting it for the sake of politics. But this is one of the genius things that the West is amazed about. But even it's in his own country, they say Bawumia or trying to trust her. What informs the negative coverage is that news media in general tend to focus on the negative and not the positives. And bad news sells well because people feel better about their lives when they hear others have bigger problems than them. Right? An European who is unhappy, he can't get a mortgage. Right? Will, however, unwittingly likely see his life in a brighter light after watching footage of people with no electricity, no running water, and lots of food to eat. So that's how they go about those narratives. And so it's about the way we look at news. And like I said, we look at news from the Western definition of news, and that's what we all taught in the training schools. And even if you don't go to the training schools and you learn on the job, by the time you come out of the job, they will still sell that idea to you that you look at news according to the way the West defines news. And that hasn't helped our storytelling agenda. We should be more focused on development journalism, conflict journalism, community journalism, and those type of journalism is talking about the positives. What I can talk about that will put me more in a positive light. There may be negative stories in there, but those negative stories will be buried and then we will highlight the positive. It doesn't mean that when something is going on wrong in your country, you don't talk about it. You talk about it, but you focus more on the positives. And when you do that, that is the only way you can change it.